Hey everyone, welcome to SF Garnish Music Production. My name is Justin Anchetta, and today we're going to be talking about frequencies and space in mixes. Often people think that there's just a panning left-right and the frequencies from low to high to work with, but you also have the three-dimensional space of how off the microphone you are per instrument. And you can do that with specific time delays. So we're going to be working in Ableton Live today, but we also teach Logic, Pro Tools, FL Studio, and mixing, mastering, sound design. The list goes on with our producer program and our academy. If you want to sign up, please go to sf.garnishmusicproduction.com, and we'd be happy to have a conversation with you. We do a free 30-minute consultation with you guys, just talking about where you are in your music, and we can even maybe analyze one of your pieces and see how that goes. So please contact us, sf@garnishmusicproduction.com, and we'll talk to you soon. So we're in a session here that's already been created, and I did this not on the live 11 to 12 Wednesdays, Pacific Standard Time, but I created this so that we can talk about the specific ways you can create space for each instrument. Now, I believe next Wednesday, we're going to go through compression and side chaining and how to create space for your bass and kick so they don't compete with your speaker. But today, we're going to be kind of talking about where on the frequency is certain instruments and how you can place them there, and then also how they hit the speaker, okay, which is kind of that like three-dimensional, right, is like bringing something farther back. Because with our two ears in real life, we are hearing things 3D, right? People, distanced away from us, or music or speakers distanced from us, or even with a surrounding, right? Whether we're in a landscape of a city or trees, it's going to change our environment. And we're going to be doing these artificial environments inside the box of Ableton 11 Suite. And one of the things about doing it artificially is that it can be very pristine and precise. And we're going to kind of talk more about that. All right, so let's just go ahead and start soloing. Well, I'll just give you a little brief play of what we're working with, and then we'll start soloing things. Here we go.
Those things flow through me, doesn't always seem cleaner.
All right. So there's just kind of a sample of everything together, kind of in the middle of the song. As you can see here, there's some kind of blued out tracks, and this is to save some CPU because there's a lot of processing going on. If you ever have too many tracks and effects, you can always, things that you aren't quite working on currently, you can freeze them by selecting them, right-clicking, and then freeze the track. Right now it says unfreeze, right, as an option. So these are frozen because I'm not really going to be working too much on them today. And then we have these other tracks that we can work with. You want to keep your CPU load, on the smaller side if possible. And I guess I'll show you guys up in the right-hand corner up here. It kind of shows how much CPU usage you're at currently, right? So it's at around 18, 19. And this is without even playing anything. I believe it's because I'm live streaming from this computer, so it's kind of like taking a load. That's something to check on, actually, is if the live stream is actually picked up in the CPU usage, or is it just Ableton? I'll have to check on that. And then another way to check on your CPU usage is right here with this bottom button. I'm going to try and zoom in for you guys. So right here, when you click on that C, it opens up this little range right here. And once I start playing the track, you're going to see that these are going up or down. Let me just see here. So right here, you can even see that this track is kind of showing a little bit of usage just by even sitting here as it is right now. All right, so when I start playing the track, so this one's taking quite a bit of CPU. Right? So that's one that I might want to eventually freeze, right? That's gonna save me some space right there. So, and that is, let's go into that track here. All right, I'll close that down. And we're gonna go into arrangement view and look at that track, right? And it looks like it is this one right here. So this whirly smoky water is taking quite a bit of CPU, and it's starting to peak over here. So I'm gonna probably work on this one first and then freeze it so that we have a lot more space. So what I did here is I dropped in an EQ8 just so we can kind of understand our frequencies high to low. I expand it out with this little triangle right here so we can kind of see it bigger. You can always bring it smaller or larger. Let's make it really big so we're just looking at this today. And we're also knowing that we are soloing this instrument. I'm going to bring this down. You guys can see that this solo feature is on right here. All right, so let's go ahead and let's just listen in to the frequencies, right? It's kind of playing from around 200, I think is the first one, all the way up, a lot of overtones, all the way above 10K. You can kind of hear it kind of stuttering, which is that's the CPU usage we're going to fix in just a second. So on my frequency 1, I'm going to have that be a low cut, gradual low cut. And we're just listening to how much it changes. Right? Obviously disappears. We want some of the lows. I'm going to do a harder cut, which is at 4 times. So I think around that 300 I'm kind of keep, but just below that. So what that's doing is it's keeping all of this wide open, right? You're not seeing any sound coming through from this area because I cut that out. And that's going to open up for your lower instruments, your bass, your kick, you know, the different subs, and it's not going to conflict as much. So we're kind of going to purposely open it up because this is an instrument that obviously has more of a higher tone, right? More of a melody above. So now that I did that, let's go ahead and bring this down and let's go ahead and freeze that track that we are on. I'm going to go ahead and highlight it and freeze track, right? So it's as easy as that. So as that is freezing, we're going to talk a little bit more about the 3-dimensional soundscape that we're going to be working with. So what we just worked with there is the lows to highs and being able to create space so that your speaker can really hit with the lows, right? And the higher instruments don't have any sounds conflicting with it. There's sometimes when, such as my voice, when I talk, it can have a lot of the lower frequencies. And if I'm doing something like a busy rap or singing part, that it might actually take up speaker space when I actually want the kick to come through, and vice versa. You can even, purposely have your voice go over the top. Side chaining can also help that, right? Where you can side chain so that when your voice comes through, everything else ducks, or vice versa. So as this is freezing, we're doing a freeze on one of our whirly smoky, which is kind of a higher mid-range melody keyboard part, right? So everything below that 200 hertz, we're cutting out on purpose. As you can see here on my screen, as it's freezing, the arrangement of that specific track, that it's cutting out right here. You can see this is 100 hertz, and then 200 is right here, and it's just starting to go up right there, and it gets to be pretty much at 0 dB at 300 hertz. And that's kind of where the first frequency of this instrument really kind of starts resonating. If you cut too early, you are going to change the tone, and you just want to watch out. Is that something that you want for your mix or not? Right? You can actually cut out too much, and it can really change the effect of the instrument in your mix. All right. So let's see if I can switch the screen here. All right. We'll just wait for this to end really quick. In a future episode, I'm going to go into some live looping through instruments and being able to utilize the effects inside Ableton for your live show and in the studio, right? What you're hearing back in your headphones. A lot of it has to do with setting up your audio interface and your headphone mix versus what's being sent so that your click track is on a separate send. I'll give you an example of that really quick here. So right here, you can see the master is 1-2, and then my click is actually right here on track 3. It's a separate send so that I'm only able to bring it to my headphones if I'm in a live environment, for example. All right, so as you guys can see that I just froze this track right here, and this is allowing me to save my CPU usage, which is shown up here, hovering around 12 or 13 right now. And let's go ahead and just play this back and see if it's playing any better. On solo. Look at this one right here. So noticing how the hi-hat and kick is, when it comes in, takes a lot more CPU. So this is something that I'm going to work on right away so that I can just have a cleaner mix. Notice how up above, when I first started playing this, it jumped up to 50 or 60 CPU. And then this time it was around 30 to 40, right? So we saved that much by freezing that track. You can always unfreeze it and start working on that track too. Okay, so this is just a way to have a really complex arrangement and effects. All of your VST plugins take extra CPU and not bog down your system. So let's go ahead and highlight the hi-hat track. So I'm noticing that I have my auto pan going on here. This is also creating spatial dynamics, right? This is our left and right, just so it's not in the center. And I'm also allowing it to play around. I could either pan it right here. Let me expand this out so it doesn't have that C. Right? You can kind of really see the knob here. You can pan it left, right. Double click comes back to center, right? But what I want is something moving around. So I put the auto pan, and it's just kind of jumping back and forth, creating some spatial dynamics. And then also, it's such a high instrument, I don't want it to conflict at all. So what I did is I brought everything, I think below around 500 or 600 hertz. I took it out entirely, and then it just is a slightly boosted in that lower range. So it kind of still has a little bit more of that ability to hear the lower side of it, because the hi-hat on the high side, it's already very present, as you can hear here. You're also hearing some filter sweeps that are happening. There's some effects going on, so it's not totally cut and dry. And one way to kind of hear what's happening, because you can see that this is cut, right? I'm going to go ahead and drop in at the very end of my chain an EQ8, right? Notice how there's nothing down here on the low side. That's because I cut it out, right? And even if you want to make sure of that even more so, you can change it just like what we did before, right? Let's take out some of these extra ones that we don't really need. Right? Cool. So there we have it, where this is, the hi-hat is definitely not going to be in the lower register. It's going to give a lot of space, not only for the kick and the low end instruments in that 0 to 600, but even all the way up, it's going to give some space for the melody instruments a little bit. I'll even go a little bit higher, so from 1K up. So even from 600 to 900 hertz, there's some space for guitars and melody instruments like piano. So I'm going to open that up for that. Close it off, right? We're closing this entirely, so it's going to cut out those lower frequencies. Now that we have that, see our CPU usage is pretty high here with that. There's a new feature of 11 where you can see how much is being used. And I'm going to go ahead and go over to our other view. Let's find that track, hi-hat. So this is our solo track. I'm going to go in here and highlight, right click, and freeze the track. So this is the same process where we're doing this to save CPU. We're working on soloing tracks and putting them in the space that we want, and then we're freezing them. We can always unfreeze them to do some work, but specifically, I know these tracks I'm not going to do too much time delay on and just have them sit where they are. All right. So as this is freezing, I am going to talk to you more about the spatial dynamics that we're talking about. And this is something I learned from Oz Fritz, Grammy Award-winning producer that teaches at SF Garnish Music. And what he was talking to me about, and I would really consider him, you know, a mentor or a teacher of mine personally. And that is that you have your pan left, right, but not only that, you have the space off the speaker that I've been talking to you about. And how you take someone off the speaker is by sending a time delay. You know, it could be anything from 35 milliseconds all the way to 150 milliseconds. When you get above 120 milliseconds, it starts to sound like a slapback delay. It's quite a bit. So the reason why I say 35 or even 65 to 120 is that in that range, we're going to be kind of listening to this in the session today. In that range, you can kind of experience how far off a wall you are, right? So if I am standing off a brick wall, which sometimes you can actually hear like a reverb or a delay called a brick wall, and it's because it's actually emulating a brick wall in front of you. So if I put myself 35 feet off that brick wall and I clap, it's going to come back to me with a delay, right? It's going to slap back. And that slap back delay and how much it slaps back, how much the feedback is, how dry and wet it is what we're controlling in this artificial environment. Okay? So what I often do to get that effect is by turning up my wet signal really high so I can really hear that a lot. Let's go into it and I'll actually experience this with you to kind of walk you through the whole process. Notice how this is all kind of grayed out, blued out right now, showing that this is a frozen track. And let's go into a different sample and we're going to kind of work on, looks like this one is not being utilized. So anything that's muted, right, over here, we're not listening to. I'm going to go ahead and to save more CPU, instead of just not listening to it, I'm going to press 0 after selecting it and it deactivates the track. This is also saving CPU, right? If you're not listening to something, you can just deactivate it. You can also just delete the track, but I'm just going to deactivate for now. All right, so let's go ahead into a different frequency range. Here's our ukulele bass. And I'm going to open up my EQ with this little triangle on the bottom middle. And notice how I have the opposite effect on this one, which is kind of all the highs from 10K is brought out, and it's kind of boosting around the 100 to 200 range. I am bringing out a slow roll off as well, right? And this also can clean up the mix. Some of the range, some of the space between, 10 to 20 hertz, right, can really muddy up a mix. You really want to have some intentionality down there in that mix. So that's what I'm doing here is rolling off some of the bass ukulele in the very, very low, but kind of boosting it where it sounds really meaty, which is that 100, 200, 300 range. Right? You can also change your cue points, which expands out how wide each frequency sweep is, right? So I'm at around 2 right now. Sometimes if you really want it more thin, right, it would go up to like 6 or 7. I like to actually, be in that range of 6 or 7 often when I'm kind of doing a sweep. And we'll just kind of try that out. I'll highlight an area right here, Command L. I'm going to actually put this, I have a utility on this chain. I'm going to say mono. So just this whole track is going to be mono now. You can also say, a certain bass mono at a certain frequency up to 500 hertz. It's another way to kind of like realize this is the low end. But really, a bass track, you don't really want to have stereo at all. So I'm just going to go say, make this mono. Bring it in the center a little bit more. Dealing with the phasing. Now notice around 50 hertz, we have a good amount of bass going on, all right? I kind of want that there, so that is in the 0 range. I'm not cutting anything out. Then it starts curving off after that. Around 100 hertz, it's boosted, and then that 250 right here. And then above 1,000, it's really not, there isn't too much. Sometimes that first note, right? And I purposely am cutting off around a 10K because I don't really want too much of the finger of that ukulele bass sound to come out. Something else that can really help out is the H compression mono. Side chaining this. So there's 2 compressors on. Every time the kit comes through, it's actually pulling the bass back. Right? So there's 2 compressors on. We're going to get more into compression next time. So I'll just kind of take that out. For now, it's still on, right? Unless I press this button and take it out. So we do want that bass to come in really big down here, like I said. So we have that good. 10K is out. Let's go ahead and go to another instrument that is similar to that, which is the kick over here. So we're highlighting this whole Kingsway kit. I'm going to bring some of those effects down. Let's make sure we're on that right track. All right. Good. All right, so we're going to kind of just loop a similar area. So we just kind of stay in that range. Let's get back to the track we're on. So notice how I put a drum bus on here. Something else I also put on is a Spectralizer. This is something I believe that's in the 11 because it has these extra frozen kind of presets you can create. So this is something that I'll probably use for a live show to kind of change up the low end and kind of put these, to my MIDI, connecting those in. All right, so once again, we're going to listen to this frequency that's coming through. So I have this muted, everything muted, so that it's just soloing the kick. I'm going to go ahead and put this on and expand it out. So right here around that, 40 to 50 is really high coming through. Notice that if I did my roll off on the end, completely changes it, right? So this is the hertz of the low end. And what I can do is turn my 8 on, which is already that high roll off. So similar to the bass, right? There's that ability to kind of really pinpoint which frequencies we want here. So we're kind of boosting around 300, about 270 hertz. And all right, let's go ahead and bring this down. Now this is actually on my whole chain of drums, right? On the Kingsway kit. I just want that on the one instrument. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this over and drop this right into the specific area that I want. Which is right after the kick. Actually, I'm not sure if we're even listening on the kit right now. There we go. Yeah, it's on the snare. So I'm going to drop it right onto the kick. Notice how it's just following up the kick now. Okay, so this won't affect the snare and the hi-hat of this track anymore because we want those to still come through in specific ways. So this is a great example of let's listen to those snare frequencies. And not only listen, but let's watch. Right. We do have, let's see here. So the kick is there, snare is on. Let's go ahead and bring this into just the snare. There we go. Now see how there's a bunch down here that we're kind of seeing come through, but I don't think we really want to have a snare in that lower frequency. So let's go ahead and just see what it sounds like. Do the extreme. Let's go ahead and listen to the certain frequencies, and actually let's open this up so you can see it better. So noticing I'm on this frequency 3 and it's at 0.71 Q. I'm going to change this to like 6. See how much tighter that gets? Let's do a little bit less tight. There we go. 4. So I'm actually bringing up a frequency of 400 hertz, right? And I brought that up really high so I can hear that, and I believe it's in the key of the song. So this is actually where you can start tuning your drums to bring out specific frequencies so that you can kind of create some harmonies. You can purposely create dissonance as well, but I'm going to be creating a harmony here with the key that I'm in. If you ever are wondering which key you're in, you can always just, solo 2 at a time.
Always seem cleaner. Those things flow through me. Doesn't always seem cleaner.
So I'm really liking the snare with that frequency of about 400. Boosted only by about 3 dB. If you really want to know the exact amount of dB, you can kind of come down here. It says 4.19. I think actually 3 is what I want. You can click on that and then just press 3 and go exactly to 3 dB. Your amount really doesn't have to be exact, but I think that I'm liking 400 boosted to 3 dB. Exactly. So you can move it to the general area and then be more precise down here with actually typing in the exact number that you're looking for. And you're going to get better at that when your ear starts associating, what you like in frequency to the number value, right? And obviously we're hearing, around 20 hertz all the way up to 20,000 hertz. And some people say that we can still feel up to 30,000 hertz as humans. I personally can barely hear down to 20, and I think above 16,000 hertz, it starts just disappearing and just turning into like a really small sound. So I think my ear is pretty similar to a lot of ears out there. I don't have too much hearing loss at the moment, I think, fortunately. When you start losing your hearing, it's often that higher frequency goes all the way down to maybe 10K, which is start getting rough for people. Okay, so what we just did there is got the snare and the kick sounding good. Let's just go ahead and get the hi-hat of this track, and then we'll freeze it. Okay, so Kingsway kit. As a matter of fact, I already took the hi-hat out over here to be really clear. So it's just kick and snare, and that's good. So what I'll do, because I have the kick and snare, I'm going to, and I took care of the frequencies I want, right click and freeze the track. All right. It's saying that it can't be frozen because of the side chaining, and it is true. If you have a side chaining to another instrument, if you freeze it, it will change the mix, and it says you can't do that. So we will keep the bass and this open because we want to keep that side chaining. Just an example, just so you guys know what it's talking about. It's talking about right here, the side chain that I have this on this compressor for the bass to drop when the kick comes through. So we have another instrument of drums here. Now this is something that was sampled from an isotope plugin and then brought into the order that I like. Notice how much bigger it gets when I turn the drum bus on. This is I already kind of set this the way I like. And then here is the EQ, right? This one I probably can't cut too much out because we want some of the highs in and we want the lows to be thudding as well.
Can you hear me now?
All right, so there's a certain frequency that I don't really need that. Don't.
Can you hear me now?
All right, so this is a moment where I might get a little sidetracked here, but I'm going to zoom in, which is the plus button or the minus button, right? And we're going to kind of purposely
Can you hear me now?
take something else there. I think I like this right here. I'm just going to go Command C and copy that into the area that I just brought in.
Can you hear me now?
Breakdown. All right, so that bump, bump, don't need that. You can just take it from somewhere else and bring that out.
I saw myself before the rain. I saw myself before the snow came. I saw myself before.
All right, every time that comes in, I think I'm just going to take that out.
I saw myself before the rain. Can you see me now? I saw myself before the snow came. Before the snow came. I saw myself before the snow. I saw myself before the rain.
Command E is going to cut the track wherever my marker is. Now, if these functions don't work for you, Command E, you're going to want to make sure that you press A. A turns on the automation mode, or press A again and it takes it off. In automation mode, you cannot cut a track, okay? Because then you're actually working with this layer of automation on top. This is something that came out in 10 that really could be, kind of was confusing at first, but once you learn it, it's really valuable to know. All right, so I have this area right here. I'm going to go Command C. I'm not in automation mode on purpose. Selecting the beginning and pasting that in.
Can you see me now? I saw myself before the snow came.
All right, so some of this is a little bit too busy, so I'm going to kind of...
I saw myself before the rain. Can you see me now? I saw myself.
I think I'm going to go ahead and take some of this out. Put some symbol in.
Can you see me now? I saw myself before the snow came.
All right, I'm hearing a beatbox, and I'm also hearing this instrument. Notice how I'm doing quite a bit panning. I have some utility dropping the volume. It's also automated. Anything with the red dot like this right here, right? This red dot is showing that there's automation, right? You can say show the automation and it will show what's happening on that track. And actually, it looks like it might be a false automation, as a matter of fact. Oh no, it's coming in right here. Yeah, so it fades in, right? Fades from 0, as you can see, all the way up to the negative 7.31. Right there. All right. Let's go ahead and do the exact same thing we did before, bringing our EQ8 to the end of the track. And let's analyze the frequencies. There's just some jumble down here, right? When it's that flat but coming through, those are frequencies that might just be kind of garbling your whole mix up. And we can clean that up just the exact same way that we did the other stuff. Let's see how much of the high I can do as well. Oops. Control Z. The other side. Kind of clean this up, all the extra ones I'm not using. Let's kind of go ahead and do our thing that we did before. Bringing this to like a 4Q, a little tighter. This is one that's kind of annoying me, so I can drop that out on purpose and then tighten the Q point to like 7. Let's try another one, 3 point. Once again, my Q point is too big. Another frequency that's kind of a little sharp. Let's go to 8, really be more precise on that. Pressing A to get out of automation mode. So I've really tightened this up to be in that 200 to, I would say, like 4 or 5K. Alright, I'm hearing some of the sounds from this drum in ways that are unnecessary. I think I'll actually take from over here and just take a smaller portion. Copy this over. You can actually just pull this across to kind of see what else is there from the loop. So it's kind of the same thing happening actually. So I think actually I'm just going to go Command D and duplicate into that. There we go. So I like that fade in. So we're creating that space for our mix right now. And I did some of the backing tracks I isolated on purpose. So I froze a bunch of the backing tracks and I kept some of them out. So we can kind of work on the frequencies. I already did kind of a sweep of this one, as you can see when this is being played. All right, let's go ahead and just solo this.
See me now. As you do your work, look inside and out.
So this one, I think I'm gonna even tighten up a little more because there's just so much low end in this song. So I just want to make sure this is really giving space for that.
As you do your work, look inside and out.
Notice how I'm boosting just above 1,000 hertz. It's around like, between 1,100 to, I would say, all the way up to 4,000 hertz for her voice. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and just freeze this because we're still having some CPU issues. It's a pretty complex mix. Let's see if we can freeze this one to save some. Freeze track. All right, cool. So that is freezing. Every time that we go into this transition to freezing a specific track, I've been talking about the spatial dynamics, not only left and right panning, but off of the speaker. So, and that's what we're going to get into really soon here. We're gonna kind of end on how to create that spatial dynamics so that certain instruments don't hit the speaker at the same time. Let's say you have a guitar and a voice competing for that same frequency and hertz that we were just talking about, you know, between that maybe 800 to 2000 range. So you might purposely put the guitar or the voice, you know, to hit the speaker before or after. And you're doing that by spatially separating out. Let's say, just think of it as a room, and you're putting the guitar maybe off the speaker a little bit more behind, per se, or the piano, or even a voice. I actually really appreciate having the voice around an 80 millisecond delay. It often depends on the timing of a song. I'm at 150 BPM right now. So depending on the song tempo, that slapback is going to either be in time or not. And just the same thing with dissonance, right? You can purposely have a dissonant, or you can purposely have it slap back maybe at a 30-second note or a triplet 30-second note, per se. And there are some equations that can give you that, where it's a slapback based on the BPM. So you can check that out online. There's some resources for that. All right, so we just froze that one. Let's go into one more voice. Actually, here, the guitar is here, and one more voice. And we're going to start doing our time delays. Okay, and I may have done some of these already, so just want to give you a heads up on that. That we'll just kind of talk through what I did if I already did it.
I saw myself before the rain. I saw myself before the snow came. I saw myself before the rain.
All right. So this voice does not have the time delay that I'm talking about, but there is a lot of wetness on it. And that wetness is going to really make it hard to hear the specific time delay. Let's see if I can hear it. Is there a cleaner track?
I saw myself before the rain.
That's not any cleaner. But what I'll do is I will go into a preset that I have here. I actually named this with Oz's name because he was the kind sir that was talking to me about it. It's called Oz Short Time Preset. Now, I really encourage you to create your own presets and drop them into your collections and color them, name your collection channels. Let's go ahead and I'll show you that up here. In the upper left-hand side, right? These are all named how I want them. And let's go ahead and
I saw myself before the rain. I saw myself before the snow came. I saw myself before the rain. I saw myself before the snow came.
All right, so you can really start hearing, you know, how much that is when I really turn that up high. You can also find out which frequencies you want to be there and which one's not. I really appreciate, you know, like when this is off, all these lower and higher frequencies are also having that slapback, and sometimes you don't want that. It can clutter your mix. So really choose, you know, it's saying how much and where you want it to be. So I'm going to kind of tighten that up a little bit, and I'm going to bring this wet up again.
I saw myself before the rain. I saw myself before the snow came.
This is now tied together, right? The time delay left, right is the same on this. I can purposely take that off, right? And you can actually set these to different milliseconds left and right. I do have it to where you guys are hearing my stereo mix. So let's try this out. We're going to purposely put one at 80. We'll type in 80 here and one at 120.
I saw myself before the rain. I saw myself before the snow came.
All right. So let's go ahead and just look this up really quick. I was not going to do this, but let's type in time delay to BPM. All right. Time conversion calculator. Let's see if this is the one. All right. So I have seen this one before. As you can see, it shows you the tempo and what quarter note, eighth note, triplet, eighth note, 16th note is based on the tempo. It only goes to 119, so half of 150, which is our tempo, right? It then shows this setting here. So half of 150, 75. And I'm thinking I'm going to go all the way down, down, down. 16th note is 111 it's going to right here. Right? You can always divide that again. Right? So half of 75 is that 37.5? Okay, it only goes to 60 here. That's fine. So yeah, so 111. That's actually showing that we are exactly in time. If we go to this track and put this at 111, let's try that again.
I saw myself
Let's do both the same.
before the rain. I saw myself before the snow came. I saw myself before the rain. I saw myself before the snow came.
I'm going to go ahead and put that onto my other track as well, just copying it and going to the end of it and pasting it in. So these are pretty long little setups here. Let's see if how these sound together.
I saw myself before the rain. I saw myself before the snow came. I saw myself before the rain. I saw myself.
So a little panning left, right, and we have our effects going.
I saw myself before the rain. I saw myself before the snow. I saw myself before the rain. I saw myself before the snow came. I saw myself.
Noticing that this track, I don't want any confliction with the low end. Purposely going to do a sharp cutout on both of these. Sharper, the 4 times.
I saw myself before the rain.
Can you see me now?
I saw myself.
Pressing tab over to the session view. Let's see which tracks are taking a lot of CPU. All right, we're looking at our little meters down here. Now, if you don't know how to find that, it's that little C button right here, on and off, right? That's showing your CPU usage. You have to have 11, right, to have that option in there. Kind of a cool feature.
I saw myself before the rain.
Can you see me now?
I saw myself before the snow
This
came.
is taking a lot of CPU right here, but I'm going to keep that on because of that side chaining. What else can I...
I saw myself before the rain.
Can you see me now?
I saw myself before the snow came.
All right. It's down to 23 CPU. Pretty good. And we just did a little bit of the time delay on specifically these 2 tracks right here, which is I saw myself before the rain, right? And we already have our EQ in there, and then we just added in our short time delay, and it's at 111 milliseconds based on the timing of 150 BPM. And we use this chart here at Spatial Audio calculator, BPM, tempo, time. Right, pretty cool little conversion chart here. There's a bunch of them online. So yeah, you can use that, or you can also use a calculator, but the chart's pretty cool. All right, so we're almost done here. If you guys have any questions, please contact us at sf@garnishmusicproduction.com. We'd be happy to answer any questions you have. And Kyle's in-house. Thanks, Kyle, for taking some of the questions and talking to people over the phone. You can contact him at kyle@garnishmusicproduction.com. We have a new Ableton 101-201 course summer boot camp, June 13th through 19th. And in the description below, you can sign up and get a 25% discount, I believe. So check it out. I think it's available through June 7th. So you have a little ways to go here, a few more days, 5 more days or so, 4 more days. And yeah, we're going to be working every Wednesday for West Coast Wednesdays, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time here at Garnish Bay Area. And we'll be talking about doing, different tracks. And specifically today, we're talking about frequency and space in mixes, right? The three-dimensional space of bringing instruments purposely off of the speaker or away from the microphone in post-production. We did that with these 2 vocals right here. Let's see if there's anything else we can kind of finish up on before we go. There's some guitar tracks. Let's go ahead and see how those sound. And then I'll probably freeze some of these too. Freezing them allows me to come to my master and really start putting on my Ozone spectral analyzer. I hope to get to that today. If I don't, we can go into some mixing and mastering techniques at the very end, right? So I'm going to purposely take my mastering Ozone off for now as I'm mixing. And let's listen to just this guitar. I'm going to solo by clicking the S, highlight the section, Command L, loop that section so it just stays looping. Check it out. I don't have anything on this yet. So now you can really see the full process of going from an unaffected channel it doesn't like that I'm bringing in more EQs. And what I'll do here is I'll put on a few different things that I often like to have, which is, and I do already have a preset rack for this, but I'll kind of just put it together on the fly for you guys, is I have an EQ, the utility, which is great for panning and gain structure, so you're not having to work with your master mixing ability here. You can do all your automations on this gain instead. And you also need a compressor, just audio effects. And let's go into find us a basic compressor. The computer is wanting me to not do so much, but we are doing the last little bit here before we kind of freeze up some tracks and save some CPU. Going live also takes, I would say, another chunk of the computer CPU as well, so we just got to be aware of that. Probably wouldn't be having this issue if I wasn't going live for y'all right now. Let's go in and get that exact same time delay that we had in the effects. All right, I'm going to take this one off. So I'm going to clear that so that's not needed in this. It's really nice to keep these really organized so you can find things really easily. I'm just going to type in the word Oz. Huh, that didn't even show up. let's make sure. Interesting. It is not here at the current moment. Luckily, we just used it, and we're going to make sure that we put it back in the right area. So which channel did we use that on? We used it on DAWs, short time delay. Let's save this. Oh, interesting. So the short time delay preset. Actually, I can save this preset for 75 BPM. 75 BPM, right? Or 150, right? And then I can right click it and put it into my effects. For some reason, this one was taken out. No idea why. So now that I right clicked and put those into my shortcuts, it should show up here. There we go. You can always then type in DAWs, right? Or whatever shortcut code that you know the name is, and it will pop up. So let's go back to our guitar, and we're going to put that same type of delay. Now we don't want to compete with other things, but I think my voice isn't happening in that same area. So that same time delay might work out really well. Bringing down the feedback and the dry wet. All right. So the same thing goes for over here. Let's see if we have any time delay on this already. We don't. All right. We're going to copy and paste the same work we did, save some time, and bring that over here to solo. So this is one that I think that I can maybe do half this amount. So 111 divided in half, right? So that'll be what, 55.5? Instead of a 16th note, it's going to be a 32nd note. All right, this is the whole mix. Right, so there you go. We took the guitars and did a 30-second note time delay here, and I really brought up the wet quite a bit because I kind of wanted that spatial dynamics to not have so much of the initial attack, but the follow through. It's like more of the slap back at 30-second, a 30-second slap back. And then this guitar right here is taking that same effect at 111 milliseconds, which is a 16th note, which we found out using our chart, right? This is the chart that we had here that we just looked up online for BPM, tempo, and delay to time. All right, so you can Google that and find that chart yourself. I hope you learned something today here at SF Garnish, and thank you to the Garnish Network for sending this out worldwide to all 8 locations. We do live in-studio classes at our boutique studio in North Oakland in the Bay Area. And due to the pandemic, we went online and we're teaching courses online worldwide at all locations and from your home. So wherever you are, you can get in touch with us. Our number is 510-463-4769. That's 510-463-GROW. And we hope that we can grow a good relationship with you and you to your music and where you go with it. Really just keeping the inspiration alive. A lot of the time when you look at a DAW like Ableton Live, it can look really complex, confusing, and it's really easy just to be like overwhelmed by it. And we're here to help you get through it and just kind of break it down, right? There's a space that you're trying to fill up or purposely create the space, right, for your mix to really shine through. So once again, my name is Justin from SF Garnish Music Production. Really grateful to be here with you. I'll be here again next Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. and we'll talk to you really soon. Have a great day.